Stephen Guilbeault is declaring himself an open and proud socialist. And that's a bad indication for the leadership of Canada, especially with regards to the next phase of what's going to be rolled out with regards to electric cars, heat pumps, carbon restrictions, and all the rest, digital IDs, central bank digital currency. It's a prison, and for ideologically driven people like socialists generally, but specifically that one, to give him that kind of power reminds me of the Age of Apocalypse in the comic book series X-Men from the mid-90s. It was a very good series. It was like, I don't know, 30 or 40 books across 4 or 5 different like X-Men titles and all sorts of crazy stuff. But fundamentally, it imagined a post-apocalyptic world where humans were wiped out and the mutants were running things and things were, apocalyptic and stuff. And it seems like if we allow this to happen, we're going to be importing Chinese-style digital tracking, digital currency, face tracking, social credit scores, and all the rest. And that's a terrifying prospect. Giving people who are that ideologically driven power leads to what's happened in China. And what's happened in China is not great. People aren't happy. They're ethnically cleansing people. That's not great, right? Like there's lots of not good things that are happening with regards to communism, China, etc. And it's their country. They can do what they want with it. But when communists get hold, it's really, really hard to derail that because the rhetoric and the structure of it is so almost impenetrable, right? And they've learned a lot of lessons. It's incredible. And it almost takes an outside event like Chernobyl to undo the USSR. I don't know what's going to undo China, right? A collapse, but even then, they control everything. So the collapse will just be papered over. They'll print more money and they'll say, well, it is what it is, and just carry on. I mean, we're in the West kind of doing that too. It's very, very concerning. Here's the carbon tax stuff, and my goodness, it's very, very concerning what's going on. Pierre Poilievre is pointing out it's a tactic to expose who is voting to keep these taxes on you, to keep making your life unaffordable. There is an affordability crisis. It is affecting people much more than just the poor. It's affecting everybody. And so there's a situation where Mr. Poilievre is using these votes, these debates, to articulate the damage the Liberals are doing. And again, this is a big departure from the Conservatives we've seen in the past 5 years, but even in the last 10, right? Harper included. He was not very good at communicating at the end of his prime ministership. And so this is a well-oiled machine with a good communicator at the helm. And that's interesting to see because it's a departure. It's not something we're used to seeing in Canadian politics. And Justin Trudeau was always an actor. He never sounded like he knew what he was talking about. He always sounded like an idiot. And he was not convincing. He just said pretty lies and said, look at these nice socks and look at my hair. He was not a serious candidate. He was not somebody that we should have taken seriously. In fact, there should have been huge red flags when he said the budget balances itself. We'll look at that in a minute. But it's incredible. It's incredible the difference. Regardless, here is Pierre Poilievre. It's 2 minutes and 14 seconds. I don't know if we're going to listen to all of it. The first part is certainly worthwhile. I don't know what's worth listening to the response. Here we go.
The panicking Prime Minister is desperate to save his carbon tax, especially on heat. And he started by giving a temporary pause to some people in a region where he was plummeting in the polls and his caucus was revolting. But then he found that the entire country was in revolt and he needed a new coalition partner to save him from my common sense confidence vote to take the tax off the heat. He got that support from the Bloc Québécois. We now learn that he has been in discussions with the Bloc to help him stay in power for 2 years. What did he promise the separatists for them to enter into this costly carbon tax coalition?
Contrary to the divisive rhetoric that the Leader of the Opposition is putting forward, the measures we announced on transitioning people on oil to heat pumps apply right across the country. The doubling of the rural top-up right across the country. We're going to continue to work with Canadians to phase out home heating oil, which is dirtier and more expensive. And I want to recognize that we are willing to work with anyone in this House who will step up in the fight against climate change. And I thank the Leader of the Bloc Québécois for continuing to be firm on building a better future for all our kids.
What nonsense. What absolute nonsense. Here is Dan McTeague. He says, call your Liberal MP, remind them that you vote and that continuing an unfair and punishing weather tax will have you working hard to defeat them in the next election. For immediate release, support Conservatives' motion to exempt all home heating. So this is affordableenergy.ca. I guess that has something to do with Dan McTeague. And he's supporting Pierre Poilievre's push to make fair taxation across Canada something that is, I don't know, normal again, something that is happening again, rather than having unfair targeted tax breaks to people that Liberals want votes from later on, right? Holly Doan says, Environment Commissioner says Canada is the only G7 country that failed to cut emissions in 30 years. We need to do more. We need to do it faster. We're a cold country. We have a long winter. We have, October to April, May sometimes September to May, that you need to use heating for your home. That's a long period of time. We use a lot of emissions because you can't, no matter how many cars you have driving on the road that are not electric cars but gas-powered cars, we're not going to heat the planet up to the point where Canada is not going to experience winter, and home heating is going to be necessary. And so it's very, very interesting that people are saying we need to do this more, we need to do it faster. Again, it's akin to jumping out of an airplane with the promise of building another airplane on the way down. You won't need a parachute, trust me. Wink. No thanks. I'll land in this airplane. I'm not jumping out of this thing. Thank you very much. And that's what they're trying to convince us to do with here. The technology will come because it will be necessary. No, I think we'll just live in squalor. I think we'll freeze in the dark, actually. Here's Nikki, and she says, let this sink in. Ottawa has spent billions of dollars. Imagine spending billions of dollars to put up a pipeline and to normalize gas prices across Canada instead of on these faulty, fictional, green, fantasy-thinking, garbage waste spending, right? What an absolute terrible thing to have happened. It's like taking billions of dollars, piling it up, and setting it on fire, and just standing there and being like, man, isn't this great? We did nothing with this money. We could have done something great with this money, and we did nothing with this money. Anyway, Ottawa spent billions of dollars rolling out more than 10 climate plans since 1990, and they still haven't reached their targets. I, for one, am one Canadian who is sick of paying for their manufactured agendas. Yes, absolutely 100% true. Here is Ryan Garrettson. He says, the answer is quite clear. Our government knows the scam carbon tax is reducing nothing. That's why they can't come up with any evidence it's accomplishing anything. There is none. They're just stealing our money. Yes, I've been saying this for a long time. This guy is, I don't know if he's a PBO representative. I don't know which office that he represents, but the back and forth here is quite illuminating with regards to him saying, I'm really surprised that the government isn't able to give us an idea of what these carbon taxes are accomplishing. Transparency would go a long way. Understatement of the week. Here we go.
One of the complaints about carbon pricing from the public is often that they don't see a connection between the carbon price and reduced emissions. And it seems in this report you're also pointing out that that's the same for many of the policies that the government is doing, that they've really only set or shown specific targets for some of them. How hard do you think it is with carbon pricing in particular to explain to people how many emissions it actually is cutting when we've seen no transparency on that?
Yeah, I find it odd that the government isn't more transparent about the results it is getting from the measures, because it just makes it harder for the government to convince Canadians of the utility of those measures. So we'd be interested in the transparency from the perspective of, can we replicate their model and see whether it adds up to 34% or 40%, for example. But I think Canadians would benefit from that accountability and transparency, because they could see the value for money in these various initiatives. All of these initiatives cost somebody something. They either cost the government for the rollout of infrastructure, they cost in Canadians in terms of the carbon levy, or they cost industry. So why not show your work in terms of the federal government of what bang for the buck they're getting from each measure? And I know that there are interactions amongst measures, so you can't necessarily parse out every single one of these 80 measures to figure out the exact amount of reductions, but you can at least do a better job of counting it and communicating it to the public. So, economists agree that carbon pricing is an efficient way of bringing down emissions. That's well understood, and we note that in our report on carbon pricing from a couple of years ago. But what's efficient from an economics point of view also has to be palatable for the general public. And the federal government can certainly do itself a favor by becoming more transparent and coming clean about how much bang for the buck it's getting from all of its key initiatives. It doesn't have to go through all 80 and have a report on all 80, but for the key ones like carbon pricing and each of these key regulations, I'd like to be able to audit them one by one and be able to see whether they're actually achieving those reductions, but they're not transparent enough even with us.
I think isn't the word audit a right-wing dog whistle? I'm pretty sure, yeah. Hitler said audit a lot, so I'm pretty sure we can't do that. Audit the carbon tax? Holy smoke. Sure, right after we audit Climate Barbie and her infrastructure spending. Well, great, we'll audit the carbon tax. Ha, great one, right? Tell another. It's ridiculous. Okay, sure. Like, how about we just admit that we've been taken for a ride. We lit up $1 billion or $2 on fire, and we enjoyed a bonfire. We enjoyed a nice story, right? We told ourselves we could spend this money and change the weather, and we failed. Okay, so we've learned $1 billion lesson, and we should really move on rather than continuing to double and triple down and asking people to prove that this has actually changed the weather. Give me a break. Rebecca says CEO of Calgary Chamber published an op-ed on the proposed federal electricity regulations. She states clearly that these regulations will negatively impact grid reliability and stability and send electricity prices soaring. We won't be implementing these regulations here, period. And Rebecca is the Minister of Environment and Protected Areas. So she says, I reject these ridiculous policies. We're not going to be implementing them because they will negatively impact our ability to deliver a reliable electricity to your house. And we're not going to do that. This interested me because I have been thinking about this, and along the same lines, this is, hold on, trigger alert. This is Andrew Tate. Is this Andrew Tate? I think it's Andrew Tate. And but he's talking about how they're going to implement the next phase of this. And he says police will be turned into robots. And because the robots don't have a shared humanity, robots don't make exceptions. If that's a grandmother not wearing a mask, the robot doesn't care. It's going to respond as if that human is violating the law. That's basically his argument here. And then he says, he equates it with electric cars. And we're going to talk about electric cars in Canada. But they're using that to prevent you from moving when they don't want you to move. Here's Andrew Tate. I think it's Andrew Tate. Here we go.
Until the police are robots. Wait till they bring on the new COVID shit and there's no human element in the enforcement. Wait till it's fucking pure robotic. When they program the robots, if he ain't got a mask on, take him out. I think there's gonna be a new... They won't give a fuck. There's not gonna be, that's a grandma without a mask. It's not gonna be, oh, that's my brother without a mask. It's not gonna be, you know what, this pandemic's gone on too long. This guy doesn't have a mask on. It's not gonna be, he's asthmatic. There are certain things you could, even as stupid as the police were during this thing, because the police proved themselves to be fucking retards. As stupid as they were, you could still reason with them. Maybe not in America, but in many places in the world, you could say, gee, I'm not wearing a fucking mask. It's a wedding. I want to take a wedding photo. And they'd be like, okay. Like, in many places in the world, COVID wasn't really that real because the police didn't really enforce it because they knew it was stupid. Once it goes robotic, then that's the great reset. And here, do you know how they're going to do it? They're going to do it under the guise of safety. They're going to come along and say, all these accidental shootings by human cops, accidentally killing people, we can't trust police officers as people because we're all flawed. A machine never makes a mistake. You're going to be safe with the machine cops. Don't worry. The machine cops come along. And when the machine cops have replaced us all, then the enslavement begins.
But we're a long ways away from that.
We're okay. Then let's take electric cars. Electric cars is the same deal. Electric cars is the same thing. They want us all to have electric cars because they can turn your car off. That's all the reason they want you to have one. They can turn it off. They can't turn off your combustion engine, but they can turn off your fucking electric car. So they're forcing us all to have them.
What about for the environment, though?
Here we go. Now let's talk about that. Talk about that bullshit. They want electric cars so they can stop you moving. So that's the whole point of it. You think they give a solitary fuck about the environment? You said environment. The amount of lithium they're digging up to make these batteries is doing more damage to the environment than a fucking petrol engine could ever do. You're telling me about the environment, and these people are so scared about climate change, but then the second they get
I
money...
think they're just doing it because it makes money, though. Because people will buy something to feel environmentally friendly.
What I'm saying
is... I don't think Elon Musk's sitting there thinking, oh, I want to turn people's cars off. He's thinking, people are going to buy electric cars to save the environment, and I'm going to make fucking money.
Correct. But the people who are in charge of the world are going to propagate...
Yeah, they'll get behind it.
They're going to propagate it and purport it under the guise of control, because that's all they're interested in is more control.
Yeah. The guy's saying, is Elon behind it then? List the companies that Elon Musk has: SpaceX, Neuralink, X, Twitter, formerly Twitter, free speech, space, brain mind control. Is Elon in on it? Probably. I mean, it would was Thomas Edison in on it? Was Tesla, Nikola Tesla? And apparently the FBI went in and took his laboratory and all of his notes, and the only person who's seen the notes, according to current internet lore, I don't know if this is actually true, is Donald Trump's uncle, right? And I don't know if that's true, but if it is, big news. Right. Son of a Bench says, anyone who drives a vehicle needs to pay attention to what the BC NDP party is trying to force through the legislation with Bill 39. The Bill 39 Zero Vehicle Emissions Act. It will limit the type of vehicles people can purchase and how much they can drive, which is something that Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and Atlantic Canada need to follow. The Liberal government watched what emission standards and how BC tax their population. It's about control 15-minute cities. So Andrew Tate saying a swear-laden version of basically that same thing there. And Tom Quiggin says, he's responding to Holly Doan's thing. Holly Doan says federal department are avoiding electric vehicles as they're too costly, says NRCan report of 17,260 government issue vehicles. Only 3% are zero emission. They're not zero emission. That's faulty. It's like calling it fossil fuels. Somebody said fossil is actually French for dig, and that's why they're called fossil fuels. And apparently, if you Google who said fossil fuels are a thing, all of the results are Mr. Rothschild didn't say this. This is a conspiracy theory. You're wrong. He didn't say this. No, he didn't. No, that's not it. So apparently, absolutely not. Mr. Rothschild did not coin the term fossil fuels to tie the idea of oil and gas being a finite and tied to dinosaur bones, fossil fuels. No, apparently we're all wrong. Just ask Google. Google knows. Anyway, 3% are battery powered, let's just say. Tom Quiggin says, you should buy an EV, but even the Canadian federal government says they're too expensive. Yeah, right. Nobody wants an EV. Nobody wants an EV. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people. I'm most worried about pulling up to a gas station for an EV and realizing that you have 4 hours wait for a half-hour charge. I would go to the Home Depot, I would buy myself a generator, and I would plug it into that. And then I'd return the generator. See you later. Thank you very much. How much gas do I need? I might just use the generator on board. Can you put the generator on board? Why hasn't Elon Musk put a generator on board? Because then it would be a hybrid. Put a little gas generator in there, right? The generator turns on whenever you need to charge it up, keep driving, right? Like, holy smoke, I'm going to need half an hour to charge this battery, 40% or something like that. And it needs to work this hard to keep the car running and this hard to charge the battery in addition to keeping the car running, right? I mean, a generator on board just makes sense. It just makes sense. Come on, Elon Musk. Is Elon in on it? Jagmeet Singh says, this winter, your heating bill could go up by 50 to 100%. What does Jagmeet Singh know? Is this a threat? Holy smoke-a-roadies. Are you kidding me right now? 50%? 100%? Why? What could possibly happen that your heating bill, last year they weren't saying, your heating bill could go up by 100%. 2 years ago they weren't saying this. 2 years ago they were saying stay home, stay safe, 6 feet to 2 weeks to flatten the curve and stay 6 feet apart to do something or other. And magical viruses knew when you were sitting down in restaurants so you could remove your mask. I don't believe anything these people say. 50 to 100%. Give me a break. Anyways, this means, of course, to Jagmeet Singh, big profits for big oil. Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre refused to confront big oil CEOs, but I will. Today, the NDP will introduce a motion to remove GST off home heating bills and make big oil pay for it. It's funny because people want to buy big oil. People don't want to buy big heat pumps. It's so weird, right? It's so weird. So I think these people are just trying to get in on the ground floor of the new oil rush, except that oil works and heat pumps don't. Oil delivers what they say they're going to deliver. You want power on demand? Sure. Burn this and it will deliver power on demand. Go nuts. And it delivers it. And people love that. People are like, you know what I want to do? I want to flip on my light, turn on my laptop, turn on like everything, have a fully charged phone and not worry about it. They love the product. The product is absolutely instrumental in their day-to-day life. It is essential. They need it. It is not like, oh, maybe I won't have electricity today. No, because your fridge would be not working, right? Like you can't just go without electricity, but people love the product. Why? Because it works. If you called your electric company And it didn't work. And they were like, sorry, Wednesday's probably going to be a power outage day. So, empty your freezer and stuff. And you think to yourself, what? Like, if the product didn't work, people wouldn't buy it. Right? It's that simple. That's why people don't buy heat pumps, because it doesn't effing well work. Channeling Andrew Tate. The food professor says imposing a carbon tax on farmers is financially unfair. They're unable to raise prices to offset costs. Certain farmers are burdened with annual carbon bills of $150,000 a year, underscoring the crucial need for the passage of Bill C-234 in the Senate. So here is, this is Arpan Kanala, and I don't know who he is, but he is speaking passionately about this. Here we go.
Like you mentioned, that the competitiveness of our farmers goes down when they're competing, for example, for a pound of asparagus from Mexico versus a pound of asparagus from Canada. My farmers have told me consistently that they're paying a lot more, and it's hard for them to compete in the market. And you had mentioned that you wanted to make sure the farmers markets were a part of this strategy. That's why I brought that up. Do you think that the carbon tax does hurt competitiveness for our local farmers when it comes to providing affordable groceries?
The challenge with the carbon tax at Farmgate is that farmers have no ability to pass on extra costs to their clients. That's the biggest challenge, and I think it's being recognized in Bill C-234 right now. So that's why I'm hoping that it's going to pass, because farmers are really, the economics around farming are far different than supply chain economics.
Right. Like you mentioned, that the competitive...
So I hope that the people who are in charge of the government aren't listening. They don't care. They don't care, and the Liberals keep re-adding the carbon tax to farmers, and the Conservatives or some group coalition keep voting against the Liberals, and the Liberals vote against it to repeal the carbon tax on farming. And why would they want to put our ability to produce food in jeopardy? Because of the SDG goals. Here is Rob Primo, and he does a show on Twitter, I think, on X now, and he goes and talks to people and all sorts of stuff. He asked Pierre Poilievre about the SDG goals, and here he asked him about the Paris Accord. Will we be staying in the Paris Accord? Will we be trying to achieve the Paris Accord targets? And Mr. Poilievre says, "You bet we are. You bet we will." Here we go.
Will you dispose of the Paris Climate Accord? That's the last question. When you're Prime Minister, will you denounce the Paris Climate Accord or no?
We're gonna hit the emissions reduction targets.
Is it fair to say no, you won't then?
We're gonna reduce the emissions, and we're going to deliver lower costs at the same time. That's my agenda. That's my policy, and.
Magic. It's magic. Budget balances itself. We're going to meet the targets. It's going to be cheaper. And, Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Here's Dave Eby. He says climate change has had devastating... Mexico did pay for the wall. Has had devastating impact on BC. With winter on its way, heat pumps are efficient, even in extreme cold. He's lying. And he knows he's lying. They're cost effective and a clean way to heat your home. Nope, and nope, and nope. That's why I'm advocating the federal government to bring their heat pump program to BC. Nonsense. What nonsense. And this is somebody who just had a suspended sentence for arson, right? So this is quite interesting. No such thing as climate change. There are seasons where weather changes, and you would know wildfires are set by arsonists like this one. This person they had a suspended sentence for this. Conditional sentence for Kamloops, BC woman who set fires at the start of the 2022 wildfire season. So these climate change incidents that are being used by politicians to justify these bad policies that make everything more expensive, it's not climate change, it's arson. And people are being lied to, like heat pumps work in extreme cold, by premiers who shouldn't be lying to them, who shouldn't be claiming to be experts on vaccines and shouldn't be claiming to be HVAC experts either. Heat pumps work even in extreme cold. Give me a frickin' break. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful